begin the presentation. So, welcome to NUI Galway online, virtually. Apologies if there's some stopping and starting. I'm not sure how strong my internet connection is right now, but hopefully we'll get through this without too many major hiccups. You can see there just on the opening image some of our students. We have a great tradition of live performance as part of core learning. So whether you study a module that is rooted in the history of theatre or the politics of performance or specific types of design work or technical management or arts policy, very often in most modules there's a core element of how do we perform? How do all these things inform performance? How does performance work in public space? And so that's a key principle underpinning our programs, and we try to utilise it as much as possible. COVID has been tricky, but it hasn't stopped us from performing. A lot of work is done online, and of course, you know, when the restrictions ease with face masks and all the public health guidelines in place, we try and engage in some safe rehearsal work as well. So I'm going to begin just giving you a bit more background information about who we are and the programmes we're offering. So in drama and theatre studies at NUI Galway, we would be specialists in Irish performance, but we don't teach Irish performance in isolation. We look at the relationship and the dialogue between work that has happened in Ireland, primarily throughout the 20th and 21st centuries, and work that is produced around the world. And we are involved in many different international networks. This summer we'll host IFTR, which is the largest theatre conference in the world, and usually brings together around 800 or 1,000 academics. Now, a lot of that may be online, but it's still a great opportunity to really be immersed in the big changes and shifts that are happening in theatre and performance practice around the world. We also have different types of research networks connected to the Gate Theatre, the Abbey Theatre, the Druid Theatre, and through that we work with Irish artists and theatre makers, but we're also in conversation with their counterparts around the world. So there's always energy and people and things happening, which is a nice way to have it. We operate our courses around 4 core values, and that really shapes and guides the decisions we make and the type of work we make as well. The first would include that theory and practice always inform each other. So we're not a conservatoire. If you came to NUI Galway to study theatre practice or theatre history, it wouldn't be a course solely in acting, should we say. But we believe understanding the history of a discipline, the history of a skill, how it operates in different contexts and different times is really important to how you practice it now. So there's always a relationship between the history and the theory, and then the actual production of the skill itself in some kind of practical output. You can see there some images from the various productions we've staged over the years. So that's the first thing to say. You might take a module that is in acting or in directing or in playwriting, and you will undertake those skills, you will develop those skills, but it will always be informed by the debates regarding the craft in itself. The second core value is that teaching is inspired by the model of the ensemble. So we really believe in working together. Not much theatre really happens in isolation, even online. You know, we're finding new audiences all over the world, and that's one of the exciting aspects of what's happened over the last few months, though of course we're anxious to return to live performance. But whether it's a group working on a piece of script, on writing, on devising, on performance, or just the general sense of the team, we do believe theatre is about the collective. And because of that, it has really strong links to community, and we know theatre tends to thrive in community contexts. And so that is something that inspires us, and we try to really be careful and mindful to encourage the ensemble. Not just as a way of working, but also as an ethos, that you're part of a community, that there's shared responsibility, that we take care of each other. So that's really part of the ethos of studying drama and theatre studies at NUI Galway. We believe that theatre is important, and why wouldn't we? It would be very strange if we didn't. On this slide, you'll just see some examples of how we've been involved in theatre projects that have a direct impact, I think, on the way we live. You can see there some NUI Galway Drama and Theatre Studies students with the former Minister for Higher Education, Mary Mitchell O'Connor. And that's related to a project around consent and learning about consent on campus. And a lot of theatre and performance students have devised performances that engage with these issues. And those performances have been staged at NUI Galway, but they've also travelled around the country and are, I suppose, at the forefront of the dialogue with university students and the campus culture about what it means to have consent, to perform consent, and when is consent absent. So a very important topic in terms of sexuality and politics and youth culture, and something that drama and theatre is directly engaged in. The second image there is Gender Counts. That was the first ever report commissioned by a group called Waking the Feminists and funded by the Arts Council that investigates the relationship between theatre and gender equality in Ireland. So it was groundbreaking in its scope, and it was followed up by a report into music as well called Sounding the Feminists. And at NUI Galway, we opened up our theatre resources to the researchers behind that group, and plenty of researchers who were involved in developing the report are also researchers at NUI Galway. And the third slide you see there is the Fine Gael Parliamentary Party, who was part of a team building exercise, came to NUI Galway and engaged in some of the types of workshops we offer that question again community, interaction, belief, subconscious bias, all of these things. And so they were great sports and took part in some of our workshops as they wanted to build their own internal community. And this was one way of going about it. We have a lot of partnerships which are really exciting and energising. Druid is a key partner to the extent that we have developed a very formal partnership called the Druid Academy. And what that means, particularly for MA students, is that we have a Druid speaker series and we have Druid masterclasses, which are exclusively for our MA and postgraduate students. As part of those, we bring in Gary Hines, Marie Mullen, people who are involved in the Druid Ensemble, everything from directing and performing, but also to writers, to the marketing manager, to the lighting designer, to the producer, who come and work with our students to tell them about how Druid works, how Druid operates, how the company maintains its Irish audiences, how it speaks to international audiences, how it plans for the future, how it deals with crisis. So Druid are a really important link. Of course, the Druid founding members were students at NUI Galway in the 70s and very involved in DramaSoc. So I suppose there's a long-term emotional connection there as well. We're also partnered with the Galway International Arts Festival, and during the summer our MA students are invited to apply for a scheme called Selected, where you get free tickets to everything. But it's not just about the free tickets. There's also masterclasses with the international artists who come to Galway for the festival. They talk about how they made their work, what inspired them, on a very practical level, how it comes together, how they found a place in the programme of the Galway International Arts Festival. So again, that's something specific to our MA students, and it's a real highlight, I think, of the year. We also have a partnership with the Abbey Theatre, of course, the National Theatre of Ireland, and the primary focus of that is the digital archive, where NUI Galway archivists and researchers have digitised all of the Abbey Theatre's records until 2007. And so you can go online as an NUI Galway student and go through the production files for every single performance until 2007. And that's really opened up exciting new ways to think about theatre, to think about the relationship between theatre and the state, and just to get a sense of the diversity of acting styles, costume styles, set design, really showing us the strength of the history of theatre in Ireland, which is enormous. So just to summarise, there is a fundamental connection between what we do in terms of research, what we do in terms of creating theatre, staging performance, and life beyond the university. We don't view your qualification here as something that happens in isolation. Coming to do an MA is a huge commitment. It's a huge commitment financially, but it's not just the financial commitment. It's a huge marker in terms of where you are in your life. And if you're coming to do a postgraduate qualification, it means that you want to continue in this field professionally. whether with further research and moving on to do a PhD, or whether working in the industry as a director, as a writer, as a performer, as an arts manager, or using the transferable skills and bringing all that theatre knowledge a lot of the time into education, in primary and secondary school education, or in community theatre contexts, and doing workshops with different kind of groups. So we see that as all connected, and there's primary learning in each of those spheres at the beginning of a year, but students as they progress can then choose optional modules to specialise. If you want to specialise in research, the modules are there for you. If you want to specialise in practice, the learning is there for you. And we also offer internships as well with leading theatre companies. So again, if you're planning to work in the sector itself as a professional theatre artist, that you would have had a taste of how that works to be part of a company, you would have met key people, and assuming the internship goes well, you're then set up with a reference, which is really important moving forward. Here is a snapshot of some of our publications and books from the staff. As you can see, there's certain areas of speciality, particularly Irish theatre in the 20th and 21st century, but how it connects, I think, to global theatre and performance practices. So there is a big focus on women in theatre and performance, on the performance of gender and sexuality, on the relationship between theatre, liveness and social media, on interculturalism and the performance of race and ethnicity, on popular performance, and on globalisation, how theatre in Ireland works as a stage of conversation, I think, between many forms of political, social and cultural life in Ireland and the rest of the world. So that's a snapshot of some of our books. We do have more, but I don't want to perceive that this is all about us, because really it's all about you. Here is an example of, or some examples of the different productions our staff have staged and been involved in. So you can see Dúna Mantrí Hinne, so Marianne Ní Chéinéide, who is our head of production and events, directed this or co-directed this at the Taibhdearc. She would be a Gaeilgeoir and would work through the Irish language, which is a really exciting aspect of studying theatre and performance in Ireland. There's also different works there in the Michelali Theatre in Druid, in our own theatre there in the O'Donoghue. So as part of the MA programmes, there is an optional module called Advanced Theatre, and through that you can choose to be part in a full production or in little micro productions that would generally happen in spring. And those would be led by staff members. They would have live performance opportunities, also with full technical support. So those options are there in spring. We usually use the first semester to make sure everyone is upskilled and on the same page, and the second semester then really to execute the more staging and live performance aspects of our courses. I briefly spoke about the Abbey Digital Archive, but that's not the only archive. So we also have a partnership with the Gate Theatre and the Galway International Arts Festival, the Druid Theatre. The archive collection regarding theatre in NUIG is simply immense, and I suspect world leading. People will say that the Digital Abbey Theatre Archive is potentially the largest digital theatre archive in the world and has archived over 1-point-something million objects. I can't even keep up with it. But these archives are a hugely important part of our cultural history and our social history. And so to have them on campus and to have immediate access to them is really exciting. For those of you who might be interested in careers in archives or cultural heritage, there's also internships we offer which are connected to the library and archival work to set you up and give you a sense of what it would be like to work in that field. Some staff contacts, you'll find this all on the website as well, in drama@NUI Galway, but our administrators, myself, I would oversee the postgraduate programmes, Professor Patrick Lonergan, the head of discipline, Dr. Charlotte McIver, the deputy head of School of English and Creative Arts, Dr. Mairead Cronin, our Druid artist in residence, who's also a co-director of Moonfish Theatre Company in Galway, Marianne Ní Chéinéide, head of production and curation, and Dr. Ian Walsh. So we're the core staff team, and then we would have guest lecturers and guest practitioners who come and work with us throughout the year as well. So the specific MA programmes, and I suspect as we move towards the end of the presentation in the chat afterwards, you might have very specific queries about which programme might be of interest to you. I'm happy to answer any of those queries. So we have the MA in Drama and Theatre Studies. This can be done full and part-time. And in this, there would be maybe one core module each semester to ground your learning and ensure that your learning and your skills match what would be expected internationally for someone with an MA in Drama and Theatre, in terms of a survey of the different techniques and critical skills required of someone who is qualified at MA level. But then I suppose the beauty of the MA in Drama and Theatre Studies is the flexibility, and you get to choose from the range of optional modules, whether that be playwriting, performance, production, theatre history, archival work, etc. So in a way, you can start to build the type of MA you like depending on your skills. The MA in Theatre Practice and Production is very much what it says it is. It's about creating theatre. It's about your skills, whether that's as a performer or a designer or a stage manager, and the production, getting the performance onto the stage. And production isn't just technical skills, though of course the technical skills are essential. It's also about publicity. How are you going to market your performance? It's about digital skills. How are you now going to deal with online audiences, which the genie's out of the bottle now. So that's something we'll have to work with. Are you going to do blended performances? Arts management, policy, funding applications. How are you going to get the funding to produce your work? Ticket sales. How are you going to create budget models that take into account how much it costs to pay people and to have some contingency budget and hopefully to prepare for a future performance. So the MA in Theatre Practice and Production, that's its key focus, making work. But making work is hugely interdisciplinary in terms of drawing from the history of theatre and performance, the skills as an artist, whether it's as a writer or a performer or a designer, and practical business skills in terms of health and safety, insurance, budget models, etc. Then the MA in Playwriting and Dramaturgy, again, we're not trying to hide what it's about. It's about writing for theatre. And so there'll be core modules in playwriting and core modules in dramaturgy. So you will study key different writers and writing styles, but always in relation to you writing and you producing work and developing your work on character, on pace, on how to write, knowing that the text doesn't end when you stop writing. It goes on to people who are going to perform it, who are going to design it, who are going to direct it, and to the audiences who are going to listen to it, and how those reception contexts will change in different countries. What an audience in Ireland might find funny might not be funny with an audience in Australia. So really thinking about playwriting in all those different contexts, and then supported by dramaturgy, the broader style of performance, the broader style of writing, being able to adapt your writing. A lot of people who write for theatre will also write for TV and film. So taking all of that into account. Then we also offer an MA in Irish Theatre History and Archives, and that's really for people interested in further research, such as progressing onto a PhD, or for people who want to work in heritage and cultural industries. So there'll be core modules in Irish theatre and an Irish theatre history, but there'll also be core modules doing archival work, and again, the opportunity to do an internship with our huge array of archives, which is quite enormous and offers many different possibilities. And then we have a new MA that we launched last year called an MA in Creative Arts. That would be quite interdisciplinary, but of course it's hosted within Drama and Theatre Studies, so a strong strand is on theatre as well. And again, this would be a focus on how to be a producer. What does a producer mean in a 21st century? So you might produce theatre, which you would also learn those skills in the MA in Theatre Practice and Production, but you may produce more interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary art forms, such as events, exhibitions, dance, performance art, and different types of work like that. So there will be access to modules in digital media and theatre and production, and some general arts management and business-led modules as well. So really focusing on the people behind the scene and how do you produce events for live audiences that are creative. So these are the key programs we offer. We also, as well as your core modules, these are not assessed, these are just for enjoyment, for education, for engagement. We have speaker series in the Druid Academy that would be held most weeks throughout the term, where you have your visiting artists coming to give talks about their practice and their expertise. Our classes take place in the O'Donoghue Centre for Drama, Theatre and Performance in non-pandemic times. This year, a lot of the work is taking place online, but whether it's online or not, whether there's a health scare or not, once you participate and complete some kind of activity in the Centre for Drama, Theatre and Performance, you're a part of our community. We have set up a Drama and Theatre Studies alumni network. There's talks on offer for anyone who has been with us as a student at any point in their life. We try and connect people who could be helpful to each other's careers, and we're in the midst of setting up a more formal development programme as well. So whether you get to work in the building day to day, week to week, or whether there's an interruption, you're still part of a community and we still take care of that community. You can see here a lot of the other activities that happen in our building, so it's usually very noisy and very busy, which is the way we like it. Here's some outside shots. So it's lovely to come to this building. I think the buildings we work in, the space we work in, can often affect our mood, and they can inspire us. And when you come onto the campus and see this building, it just gives you a lift, particularly if there's rainy weather, which there can be in Galway, and it's a cold day and blustery. You come into a building that is big and open and full of light and heat and full of people, and it becomes a very warm place. Some of our facilities were the first and only 100% LED equipped theatre, which means to those of you who aren't technical, we fancy lights. It's fully accessible public and backstage areas. So regardless of what physical abilities you have or physical challenges you face, the building is equipped to be open to everyone. The spaces are flexible and adaptable. Some studio spaces connect onto each other. The seating can be taken out and put back. There's different ways of using the lighting rig, and the backstage space is quite spacious as well. So it's a lovely space to use. We also provide technical workshops for anyone undertaking an MA in Drama and Theatre Studies at NUI Galway. They're not assessed, but we believe whether you're coming here really to do a research-led MA and to be surrounded by dusty boxes, or whether you're intending to develop your skills as a producer or performer, anyone who has an MA in theatre should be able to come into a theatre building and switch on the lights. If you don't know how to do that, I think there's questions that we'd have to ask of ourselves of the training. So we have the most wonderful technical director called Mike O'Halloran. More locally, he's known as a bit of a theatre technical god, and he provides technical training throughout the year for MA students to ensure that you are comfortable. You know, if we hand you a set of keys, coming in, turning on the lights, getting things set up, knowing the safety precautions, knowing the kind of technical capacities the building offers. And that's just an important thing to have, to be confident using the space you're in. So that's the end of the presentation. So I'm going to do questions now. You may have kindly muted yourself, which I appreciate. If you want to ask questions now, please do so. I'll try and figure out how to use this again. Okay, so I see a few people there. You could raise a hand or you could pop a question in the chat. Whatever you feel like is very welcome. And hello. I see someone there with lots of technical things behind them. Gavin.
Hiya, Mary. How's it going?
Nice to see a familiar face. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Nice presentation.
Oh, good. Yeah, a bit nervous, you know, when you start speaking to the screen, you have to remind yourself there's other human beings. But you know what I might do? I still have this on record. I'm going to stop the recording so people don't feel, you know, under observation.
No, it's fine.
Let's see, how do I do that? Stop recording. Done.